We're about a minute out, but I'm going to get started. Hello, DragonCon's digital media track. Welcome to Telling Stories with Video. My name is Kevin Cafferty. I am a documentary filmmaker. I'm creative director and head of video production for a Fortune 500 company, and I have a couple dumb podcasts. And I'm very excited to be here with this esteemed panel to discuss video production and storytelling with all of you. I'm going to introduce the rest of you, or rather have them introduce themselves, starting with Bar Fox to my left.
Yay, good morning, everybody. I love that music, so I'm trying to sound so true like the music was sounding. I am Bar Fox. I am a television and film producer. I've worked for Magic Johnson and currently work for Tyler Perry. And I am also the creator of Cosplay Your Way in Color documentary that won 2 Telly Awards. So I was very excited about that. And I am an avid cosplayer and cosplay guest. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot I have a company. So I have a company called Cosplay Your Way that we do here at the con and everywhere, where we are very inclusive with cosplayers and we make sure that they all can enjoy this fandom.
I'm Kyle Sullivan, director, assistant director, and a camera operator in the film business. I am one half of a company called Screen Door Pictures, and I like to make pictures move.
I'm Melissa Simpson. I'm the executive director of Film Impact Georgia, which is a local nonprofit that we started in 2019 to build better foundations for independent creators based in Georgia. I went to film school to be a producer. Took a weird turn into film festivals for a while because it's actually very similar to producing. And now I am circling back around to producing independent projects. By the way, check out filmimpactgeorgia.org. We currently have a grant cycle open that closes on September 18th. You could get $5,000 in a mentor to make a short film. So
cool.
Got to plug that.
But is it only to Georgia residents?
It is to Georgia residents.
Hi, I'm Hansi Oppenheimer. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a guerrilla filmmaker. I worked in post for years. I worked as an extra. I've worked in events and film festivals for many years. And now I have my own company, Squee Projects. And the latest documentary we did was a documentary on Joe R. Lansdale, and it's got Bruce Campbell, Don Coscarelli, and a whole bunch of people in it.
My name is John Hudgens. I'm a filmmaker, artist, somewhat retired animator. I've worked on things from Babylon 5 to Star Wars, Crimson Skies, and various other projects like that. In my day job, I create car commercials, which is not exciting, but it pays the bills. And I've done the documentaries Backyard Blockbusters and American Scary.
American Scary is great.
Thank you. Which are both streaming on Amazon Prime right now, and I have copies available here. And I'm currently in production on a new documentary called Chair, which is all about comedy improv.
My name's Jeff Ello. I'm a filmmaker from Indiana, and I work as a fixer for industry projects. And so you don't know me, but you have seen my work.
Fantastic. Before I start questions, I do want to mention that the official charity for DragonCon this year is Open Hand Atlanta, and you can drop donations in that bucket there. And I believe DragonCon will match donations up to $100,000 of money raised during the con. Every donation helps our community and helps make a difference. Hansi, you refer to yourself as a guerrilla filmmaker, and I think everyone in the audience, and for a lot of the passion projects we do, I think that nomenclature fits very well. I'm curious if you could talk about that a bit more and what guerrilla filmmaking means to you versus, say, something that's a bit more of a big production.
So my journey was, I went to film school and I tried to get in the film industry, and I did it, through various, working in different positions. But then making films, I always preferred to go out with my camera and most of my work is about fandom. So I usually like I did a documentary about the band The Replacements, but it's all from the fans' perspective. And as I found, I got royally unfairly treated on that film when the industry got involved. So since then, I have refused to be a part of the industry because of the distribution deals. And when this came out, people were interested, and I got 23-page contracts from people, and that I had to hire a lawyer to look at, which basically said they could take away the rights, they could re-edit, they could change the music, they could change the title. I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm sorry. If I'm going to spend 3 to 5 years of my life on a film, I want it to be my film. So I made my own DVDs. This is an edition of only 300. That's all there's going to be. It's on Vimeo. Troma is actually the most decent one and licensed it, so it's going to be on Troma now. But yeah, to get it on anything like Shudder or anything, like the control you have to give away. And they know there's so many hungry filmmakers. I've been doing this now for 40 years, so it's like, I'm not that hungry anymore. It's not gonna feed me. I have a day job, so I'm just gonna do this for the love of it.
Yes.
And if I make some money, awesome. And we do. I screened it at NECON, which was the perfect crowd. It's the New England Horror Writers Association. So, and Joe was there. So I made a bunch of money selling the DVD there, So you can do that. You don't have to try to fit in the industry.
Curious, the rest of the panel, who's especially made some of their own films, working on tiny budgets.
We got lucky with American Scary. It wasn't the greatest deal. But they didn't touch the film. I made sure that the film we give you is the film we give you. The box art, the original release of the film I hated the box art for it, but it was because we gave them what I thought was a really good one, and so when I reissued it myself, I did what I think is nicer. But because I hated the original box art, but what can you do?
But John, in terms of actually making the movie, I'm curious how that was in terms of did you have a large crew? Did you?
No. It was me and my partner Sandy. It was the two of us. It was basically my friend Sandy Clark had the idea to do the film, and he didn't know thing one about making a movie. And by that point, I'd already done the Star Wars fan films that we'd done in Babylon 5, and he obviously knew that I knew what I was doing with the camera and editing. And so he asked me to help, and we did a little test run. We went up to a show, I think in Pittsburgh, with Cinema Wasteland, is that what's there? And just shot some interviews with Tom Savini and Bob Burns and some various other people, Chili Billy and realized that this will work. And based on that first weekend, I cut together a presentation reel that we could show to other people. It's like, hey, they've already got some people. This looks like they know what they're doing. And it was the two of it, but it was a documentary, and all the footage was, footage from the old shows, the hosts gave us themselves. We got a lot of cooperation, like Big Chuck and Little John out of Cleveland, who were on the air for 40 years there, gave us anything we wanted, from all their old shows, including some interview footage with Ernie Anderson that hadn't been seen since the 70s. Even though he passed away in the mid 90s, we had essentially new interview footage with him. But it was a Talking Heads documentary with a lot of vintage clips, and it was, Sandy doing the interviewing, me running the camera, and I edited the entire film myself because I knew what I wanted it to be. As it started coming into focus, at one point we'd actually talked to Bruce Campbell about him narrating the thing, and as I was editing it, I realized I don't need one. I'm making this story work just with bouncing back and forth from different clips and interviews. And also, we got lucky in that I was able to use Neil Gaiman as the spine of the film because he got asked to host the 13 Nights of Fright on the Fox Movie Channel, and he called me up and said, "Hey, I'm doing this. Do you want to come out and film it on set?" Yes. When Neil Gaiman asks you to come on set, you do that, So, and like I said,
I would.
I know. And I'm not bragging, but having worked on Babylon 5 and have done stuff at conventions through the years, I owe a lot of my career to DragonCon from the people and connections I've made here. So you get to know people like that just from your connection to the shows. And sometimes it pays off. You never know. The random conversation you can have at a party will turn into a job in 2 or 3 years. You never know.
Yeah, Joe wrangled a lot of the people for me. He reached out to Bruce Campbell and Don Coscarelli and said, and then when they heard it was going to be about Joe, they were like, "Oh yeah, sure, we'll talk to her."
Fantastic. Jeff, you're way back there. You haven't said much yet. What got you started with this?
I'm sorry?
What got you started with all this?
Oh, God. mistakes, life mistakes, big life mistakes.
Mistakes like making films, or
Like,
I'm curious
like
about
saying
that.
yes. Anytime you say yes, well, you've just gotten yourself into something. No, so Indiana, right? I grew up in Indiana, and there is no film industry there. But because there is no film industry there, there's a film industry there. And so we sort of self-organized a statewide film coalition, I guess. And there's a bunch of people basically who just get together, make films in what you would think would be a real studio, but it's actually like an 1800s fire station, right? And but an 1800s fire station has amazing sound qualities. So as a sound set, anyway, we had one of those in our backyard. We started making movies. In fact, with a man who now makes the officially licensed Batmobile.
Oh yeah. Has he gotten that suit dismissed?
It has been. Oh, I don't. Well, we'll get he didn't do anything wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, being persecuted by an angry, angry guy. So, but anyway, if you want a 1966 Batmobile, it is made in Logansport, Indiana. It's they are amazing. But yeah, but effectively, I said yes after a showing of Star Wars. This is how this went. Person's sitting watching the credits, right? I'm in college doing CG, and we're the only two people left in there. And he says, "Oh, you watch the credits too?" I said, "Yeah, I got some friends who work at ILM now." And he said, "Oh, that's great. We're making a science fiction movie." And I was like, "Oh, really? Great. Okay." It's like, yeah, we've got we actually did one already. We're doing a sequel. And I was like, "Oh, okay. Hey, why don't you come and see it?" And he gives me his address. It's Logansport, Indiana. But I walk over there. I walk in the garage. There's a Batmobile. And at that moment, I knew this is a person who does what they dream of, right? And that's how I got into filmmaking, is the inspiration of one person who does it, right?
Cool.
Who actually gets it done. Yeah.
Fantastic. How about you, Melissa? What got you started with visual storytelling?
So I, in high school, got a job at a movie theater and eventually ended up as a film projectionist when there was actual film, prior to theaters moving to digital. So I really fell in love with film at that time. And my then boyfriend, now husband, he was going to the Art Institute and graduated in 2009. And so I started working as his producer while he was in school. Then eventually I went to film school to be a producer. But I think it all really harkens back to sitting in a dark booth running 12 projectors. Then I went to school as they called an adult learner because I didn't go until I was 25.
I went my 30s, so.
Nice. So you were also a non-traditional student. But yeah, I got a degree from the University of North Georgia in film and digital media. And from there, I started on very small student projects and then eventually worked my way up. I've then kind of started in production coordinating, and now I literally spent the last 2 weekends producing shorts. And I've got another one coming up in a couple weeks. So I'm a little tired this weekend, but it's absolutely worth it. So being a producer, obviously you're not as much in the creative space, but there's nothing like helping bring stories to life. And, if you've done a good job, nobody knows that you've done a good job. So it's kind of a masochistic area of film.
Is it all filmmaking?
Right. Well, absolutely. And then among that, I was working with my then partner, Molly Coffey, who was kind of a legendary creature in the Atlanta film community. I was working on her feature, and she, in 2018, had a series of events, and the film didn't actually get made. And so we spent a couple months, bitching because somebody like her who had, worked in the industry for many years, called in all of her IOUs, was getting, the best deals from like PC&E on camera packages and stuff. If she couldn't make it, then there was obviously a gap here in Georgia. We've seen production and studio pictures just take off here, but that hasn't necessarily led to wins in the independent community. So after a couple months of bitching, we then decided to do something about it, and we created Film Impact Georgia. And so the last 3 years, we've given 6 grants. We've given $30,000 to Georgia filmmakers with hopes to we've got a development lab for feature films in the works that was supposed to happen in 2020. But
What happened then?
I had a documentary that I'd planned on in 2020, and that obviously
Our
has
first
been
film festival was February 2019.
How many
Yeah.
had a film fall apart in 2020?
Well,
Yeah.
actually, it kind of worked the other way because, we were just starting to do film festivals, so that kind of fell apart. But we did do some virtual cons, and then when we screened at NeCon 3 years later, just recently, it was like Joe was there, and we all saw it, and it was like having not seen it for 3 years, but seeing it over and over when I was four-walling changed the film for us. So it was like, oh, this is a much better film than we thought.
That's good.
Yeah,
Kyle.
I'm sort of picking up the pieces on the comedy improv one because I've done a lot of shooting on 2019 and 2020. I was going to hit New York, Chicago, and getting some really big names. And, well, the world said otherwise.
Yeah, 2020.
Actually, when everything falls apart, that's really good business for me.
Kyle, what made you fall in love with this?
Just watching movies as a kid, I was a guy in high school that grabbed any camcorder I could and made really dumb things. I remember one of the dumbest things I did was like I was filming a fight scene with my friends, and I had another guy behind the camera like a trash can lid, and I was doing like live Foley for the hits. I'd worked at a copy stuff with VHS and stacks of VHS players, and was really good in Mario Paint because all the basic ingredients of editing was in Mario Paint for Super Nintendo. And I don't know, just sort of, it's always sat in the back of my head. And then, fell in love with science, tried to finish a degree in science, got some degrees, but at the last minute I was like, I just like moving pictures more. And so with support, I jumped in about 10 years ago, and it's been a slow climb, but you stick to it long enough, doors start to open a little bit, and
You just keep
you make
kicking.
contacts with friends and colleagues, and they'll call you up randomly. And I don't know. I practiced editing with a YouTube channel, Chexpertise. That was good. YouTube is perfect if you want to get into it.
Absolutely.
It's a perfect playground.
Fox, how about you?
Wow, let's see. So I started out as one of those kids that had to be on TV, and I'm from Ohio. So, we're in the Midwest. So as you stated, it wasn't there, but it was there. So when opportunities came about, you really jumped on it. So I ended up being a host of a local television show that played in Indiana and Kentucky and all that stuff across 3 states. And as I was doing that, I was looking at the footage. I was sitting with the post team and look how they were cutting it and editing. And of course, I was like, well, I want to be able to control some more of the imagery of me and, put me in there like that. I was just really like, give it to me. So they were like, oh, sit with me and you can learn some stuff. So I sat with them and picked up some editing tips. And then I moved here. I started a music career that failed. And then I went back behind the camera, and I was like, I can edit. So I started editing for Magic Johnson for his network. I actually launched his network and editing for some other shows and things that happen, and doing short form as well as long form. And of course, me being the person I am, I was sitting there and I'm like, well, I'm editing content, but I want to create it. I want to make sure I influence the stories. So they allowed me to have a show on the network.
Amazing.
Yeah, they did. I had
Good
to
for you.
connect. So I got my own show. I directed. It was about music. So I wanted to combine both my worlds of music and editing and just everything. And I had a music show that they placed on the network that ran. And of course, that made me want more. So I jumped into being a reality story producer. and then producing other shows. So I've worked on a few reality shows. I've worked on a few documentaries. And then I met Gayla Jameson, who introduced me to documentary style of storytelling. And it just opened my mind to so many wonderful things. So as we got to 2020, which is a little interesting, I have, with my company Cosplay Your Way, I do an annual shoot called Cos Noir to make sure people of color are seen in the cosplay space. And because I do what I did, I just wanted to capture moments for me later when I get old and I'm like, oh, I just want to see how fun my life was back in the day. And but when that happened in 2020 set in, of course, I sat there and was like, I want to do something. We're just stuck in the house. So that actually promoted me to get my documentary done. And it's so wonderful to have connections and be good to people because I was
Yeah.
able to call friends. I was able to say, hey, I know I've gotten you some great jobs on my network. Do you mind doing the music for and scoring my documentary? Oh, of course, Jabbar. And I'm like, okay, you did some great things for me. Do you mind shooting? So it just all worked out. And I can edit. I had to pull back up my editing skills. So I was able to cut that down, but I had the help of super editor Dina Noel, who came to cosplay. I introduced her to cosplay, so she really wanted to help out. So it's kind of like I didn't know I was working on this holy grail of people to come together for this project and to combine cosplay with filmmaking. And it was kind of the first of its kind because it was the first time POC cosplayers were being seen and pushed to that degree. It was just really an organic situation that I was able to finally sit down and say, oh, that's why I met this person. And that's why I met this person. And it just all came together like a nice little gumbo. So that's how I got started. And now, of course, in my regular life, I story produce and produce for bigger things in network. And I totally get what you're saying. When you want your product out there and you have your passion into something, we have a tendency to want to take it and remix it and still tell you it's yours and give you. And it's not right. I wish we had a better system than that because people are really giving us stuff from their hearts. I actually have advised people in other panels I do on that side. I know you have your passion project, but after your passion project, do another one that you don't just love as much and push that one and let it be good, but push that one in place so you can get maybe the recognition and the chops. And you might not care if they start tweaking your stuff. And then once you have reached your level, you put out your project because then
Yeah,
nobody bothers you.
I have this really like after this film, I was offered, a film with $135,000 budget and a crew. And I thought about it a lot and I actually labored over it and cried over it because I realized that the dream that I'd had of being a filmmaker was not the reality of what being a filmmaker was. And I didn't want that. I mean, then I felt like, what am I doing on the film? I prefer to go and just talk to someone with my camera, and that's what I want to do. So, but it was interesting. And then I figured, okay, educational is more my niche. That's more the people. So I had shot a lot of interviews for a documentary on women in fandom, and the editor bailed at the last minute.
Ugh.
So we ended up cutting a short, and but I still have all the interviews. But now a very prestigious university's pop culture department is interested in the archives. So I'm working on archiving them all.
Nice.
So you can find your niche. It doesn't have to be, I'm not going to be Sam Raimi. I wanted to be Sam Raimi, I'm not going to be Sam Raimi, but I'm going to be me. So,
Absolutely. Carve out your lane.
That's fantastic. Now, I have questions here, but obviously I want people in the audience to get as much out of this as possible. So if you have questions as well, just please raise your hand. In
There
the
you go.
back. I'll repeat your question if you don't want to.
I'm a high school filmmaking teacher, so what, if you could tell high school age students one thing, to get into the industry, what would you tell them?
Okay, I'm going to repeat that for
Yeah, I
for the
know.
Twitch people. But if you could, he's a high school teacher. If you could tell high school age people looking to get into film one thing, what would it be?
Well, I would say try everything because I didn't actually answer your question because that's what happened to me. I mean, I went into college thinking I was going to be a writer. I thought I was going to be going to journalism, and I went to the wrong meeting. And I went to the meeting for what turned out to be what UT at the time called the Videotape Committee. It was a student-run teleproductions facility. They ran the campus cable system. And somebody put me in front of an old, Sony 3/4-inch edit system and said, "Try this."
Yeah.
You mad?
I changed my major the next week, and by the end of my freshman year, I was directing live 4-camera setups for the campus cable network. And so, by the time I actually got to the classes, I was way beyond what they were teaching. But I didn't know that was what my career path was going to be, and I tried something new. So that's what I would tell them: try everything.
Yeah.
Because you might find something you like more.
I would also say to focus on collaboration, learn how to work in a team, learn how to not be in control of your art, right? Because if you want to be part of the industry where you're making money, you're not in control of your art. Nobody is, right? Zero people are in control of their art. Even the director, the story gets told 3 times: once when it's written, once when it's shot, and once when it's edited. And maybe a 4th time when it comes to me, but
When it's reviewed.
right. But at no point is anyone truly in control of the end product, and it's a massive team effort. Some of those team members don't even know who each other are. But if you want to hold on to your babies, then it's going to be a hobby, right? So
Not necessarily.
I mean, you can make money. I'm not at all. There are a million ways to make money. I'm just saying that the industry.
If you want to work in the industry, yeah.
I'm sorry. I would say tell them to create from a known space, create from what they have experienced, especially for first-time filmmakers, and don't be against or afraid, or definitely reach out to people if you are working on something that you're not knowledgeable about. Consult with someone that is in that space so you can tell the story correctly and you can express it correctly. First-time filmmakers they have a large tendency, in my experience, to do a lot of stuff, make it long, just go and overindulge a lot of times. And you have to know how to, one, tell the story, get the story out in a timely manner. Filmmakers need to know time parameters. The best thing that happened to me was learning how to cut 60-second, 30-second spots.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's the lesson of a lifetime.
That was my bread and butter for years.
That was your bread and butter. I mean, it teaches you so much. You tell that story in such a short time. So definitely tell them to speak from the heart with their films and speak from their knowledge, and not try to dive into something or chase a hashtag or chase a story because it's popular.
Yeah, and I would also say, get involved with something that doesn't interest you. I mean, I had no knowledge or interest in horror hosts when we first started doing this. It just sounded like an interesting idea because I didn't grow up with one. I mean, a lot of people, the horror host is like your first television personality, depending on the market you grew up in. And I don't know if very many of you are familiar with these. At one point, when we were setting up interviews, I was like, do we really need to go to New York to interview this Zachary guy?
Oh my God.
And if you start reading into this, Zachary is like the king, the forebearer of all these guys. It's like, yes, you moron, you do need to go. But I didn't know this, and so but I learned a lot of stuff making this.
One thing I would really want to impress on someone like high school age too is don't be afraid of sucking, because it's only through trying it and doing it that you get better. And if you do something and you see that it doesn't work, that'll help you figure out what does work.
Yeah,
I
agree. Go ahead.
sorry. I would say volunteer. Volunteer for film festivals. Volunteer to be on a screening committee for a film festival, because you can watch other people make mistakes and not have to do them yourself. Also, you never know where that volunteer gig will take you. I can pretty much trace my career back to volunteering for a film festival, and literally the people that I met along the way. And then piggybacking on the don't be afraid to suck, do a 48-hour film festival.
Oh, yes.
I did one in college, and we busted our asses. We thought we had done it. We show up to the theater to watch it on the big screen, and there's no fucking dialogue. You can't hear anything because our sound guy blew.
Yeah.
And nothing will crush you more than sitting in a theater watching what's supposed to be a drama, and then people start laughing because people are getting shot and you have no idea why. But I learned more in that 2-day experience than I did in like entire semesters in school. And that like I learned life lessons that I will never do again. So go out and suck it up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
One of the best early pieces of advice I got, my very first convention was actually right here for the 86 Worldcon. I was essentially Ray Bradbury's assistant for a week. I thought all conventions were going to be like that. I got spoiled, but Ray told me, I mean, it's basically this, the suck thing. It's like, you know, do stuff, even if it's no good, do it, write it, do it, get it out of your system, move on to the next thing, Because he said when he first started, he wrote like hundreds of stories that will never see the light of day because he knew they sucked, but he had to get the suck out of his system.
Yeah.
You know, and then he started writing Ray Bradbury stories. You know, and so I mean, I've done a lot of stuff that I'm never going to show anybody, but I did it, I finished it, and I moved on to the next thing.
I'll show them all my crap.
Yeah, you learn from each project. Don't be afraid.
Let
to
it
stop.
all out there. I'm
Just
totally,
just do it. Like you can get a lot of mileage out of a film degree. There's a lot of history and theory, but like there's literally nothing better than being on a set, even if it's a couple of your friends and a camera. Just do, and you'll figure it out.
I want to ask about gear, especially when you're working on kind of smaller passion projects. What gear do you recommend people seek out?
Whatever works for the job.
yeah.
I mean,
Whatever you have access to too. I mean, like, you know, I use my phone sometimes. I have like a Vixia G20. It's like an $800 camera. It's, you know, I use a boom mic a lot of times.
Yeah, I think the gear doesn't matter a whole lot. As long as whatever you
No,
have
I don't.
access to.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
and
I-
especially if you know you're editing because
Right.
you can do so much with it.
Right. I was a cam op on a show for Outdoor Channel over the last 3 weeks. Just finished last week, and like we had a whole bunch of Sony cameras, these tens of thousands of dollars worth of Sony cameras. But I'd say about a third of the show is shot on an iPhone 13 or whatever, 12. Just because like we're in the moment, we had to
Yeah.
capture it, and they whipped the phone out and they got it, and like
Yeah.
it's gonna go in the show.
Tell the story about the Black Magics that you told last night.
Yeah.
The Black Magics.
Huge Black Magic fan.
Wait, which one? Which?
The one about like all the cars on MacGyver. Wasn't that you?
No, that was Matt Green.
Oh, sorry.
Here's the thing. So we do a gear panel every year at DragonCon, and it's all gear for the independent filmmaker. And it was yesterday at 11:30, and I bring this huge trunk of stuff in every year, and it's all newer stuff, and show everybody what it is. And the simple fact of the matter is that the gear doesn't matter, like you're saying, right? The gear is what you do to start making it look and sound better. But the principles of how you make it sound good work even with junk,
Mhm.
right? Getting the mic close to the subject, making sure that your lighting is even and, I should say, calibrated.
The
to
person is
scene.
talking in the
Appropriate-
direction of the
Appropriate
boom
to the
mic.
scene, appropriate to the
Right.
scene, right, exactly. So, and you can do all of that with shop lights, and you can do that with windows, and you can do that with bounce cards, and you can do that with any number of $5 items, right? So start there, and as you realize what you're missing, then buy the gear that does that. And I would definitely start with audio.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to
Yep.
summarize
Everybody
that.
starts with audio.
That's what I was gonna add.
I like to summarize that as like I said it yesterday. Would you want to hire a film school grad with a $30,000 camera or Steven Spielberg with a cell phone? Right?
Yeah.
The tools are only going to help you, but you got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, I was gonna add as much as I agree with the gear, please put the most concentration into, well, not the most necessarily, but make sure your sound is good.
Yeah.
It is nothing worse. I can't do anything in post. I can't have my post team do anything if the sound is horrible. We can kind of cheat some other
Yeah,
things.
you can't really fix it in
We
post.
can't fix that.
We can't get away with a Christopher Nolan awful sound mix, you know.
And let me tell you, so much more of the story is told in audio than in
Mhm.
video,
Uh-huh.
right? It's,
Yeah.
the video,
Especially documentary.
yes,
It's
the video
51% of
makes
the
it
picture.
go better. The video gives, allows you to focus somebody's vision in a particular place and all that, and
Mhm.
tell more of the story. But so much of that is happening with the intonation and the
Yes.
and the the emotion that's coming out
And-
through
and-
the sound.
Don't
Well,
rely on green screen if you don't have the skill set to make sure it looks good. It's even. Oh, you're clapping. Thank you. It's even. I guess so many people. Oh, just do it in green screen. We can create the back. No, you can't. This is wrinkled. It's not. The lighting's not even. I can't do anything with this. But okay.
Mhm.
I have a question.
And talking about the sound, this is one of those things that just seems like a little minor thing, because some people just think, oh, you just do talking head interviews, you can just slap them together back to back. Well, you got to get rid of the ums and ahs. I mean, it's an art. It's an art to carve up an interview and make it sound like a complete thought that wasn't just figure it out while they were saying it, and then finding ways to hide the fact that you've edited the shit out of it.
Yeah. You
Even
gotta
the green
start with
hat.
the declarative sentence. Get out the ums and ahs.
Yeah.
Also with that too, I've noticed, especially with a lot of Netflix, I can't pay attention to anything unless I have subtitles.
Oh yeah, but the audio mixes are so like wonky. And I mean, I know everything's level when it leaves, but whatever we're playing it on.
Sometimes I wonder who checks things, because that was the other thing when we talked about the original distributor. For whatever reason, we gave them the complete audio commentary track as its own separate track. They mixed it with the full audio of the films, so that you're listening to the movie and there's me in the background. The commentary track was just sucked on the original release, and we got people dinged us in all our reviews for it. So amateur. It's like, not the copy I sent them.
I always think of how in the 60s, the Motown record label would record their songs and they would play them back on the crappiest transistor radio because they knew that's how people were going to experience it. And so when I'm making something, I always try and play it back on as many different kind of headphones and speakers as I can to see if it works.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Although I have an anecdote about that anecdote. I was interviewing Larry Fessenden, and I went to pause him when a motorcycle went by, and he's like, "What? I love bad sound."
Wow. You have a question there? I could actually. You're right next to the mic. If you could talk into the mic, I would. For Twitch.
All right, so I run a YouTube channel where I do tech reviews, so it's all nonfiction stuff. And I wanted to see, and most of everything that I do is talking head stuff.
Mhm.
So my question though is, how do you use B-roll to work with the main content of the story to either enhance it, or in what example have you seen of it that detract from the main story? Like, what are some examples that you might have?
I think that's that's an experience taste quotient of some kind, right? When there's too much B-roll, you know it when you see it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I can really think of an example of where it's bad, because, well, I've certainly tried to not have those in mind, but that's a good question.
Let me rephrase the question then. What methods have worked for you?
Well, I have seen a lot of YouTube videos where the B-roll hurt the message the person was trying to send, but often those are either automatically generated. They were using stock footage and it just didn't mesh with what they were saying, but they were trying to be illustrative rather than just talking head. And I understood where they were trying to go, but stock footage is stock footage and people can spot it a mile away.
Okay.
So be careful. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
So be careful of stock footage. Be careful of so for example, you're a talking head, okay, and maybe you're at a desk or whatever, and then you're cutting to B-roll for your as you're explaining something, okay. So just make sure that as you're cutting into that explanation, for me, I like starting the B-roll a little beforehand, so that as you are starting to say what you're starting to say your main thesis on this topic, that you're getting an overview of the thing you're talking about, right? Don't start it after you've said it. There's a timing portion here that makes everything feel like it was meant to be there. The timing, telling stories with video, it's all timing, right? Mm-hmm. From comedy to drama to anything to explaining, it's all timing. And if you hit the visual at the right time as you're explaining, then people will feel like it was a natural transition into the thing that you're showing. And it's time.
Editors might disagree with me, but I like to think of it as like you're in a conversation with the room, right? If you got two people, you're gonna show an angle on the person as they're talking. There's a little bit of overlap as you flip sides, but if you're talking about a piece of gear, at some point in the demonstration, you're gonna look at the gear, and whenever that feels natural, that's where you put your B-roll.
And sometimes it can come down to something as simple as a second. Because I mean, there was one piece in Backyard Blockbusters that just seemed like it just didn't work, and I just put somebody said it was actually Chris Gore said something, and I just dropped in a second pause, and then and just a little piece of B-roll cover it, and then moved on to the next thing, and all of a sudden it worked because you had time to digest what was just said, and it's great when you can like use, especially when you're cutting to something else, to not just illustrate to them, almost in a way to sort of comment back on what was just said, especially if you could find clips that do that, It's one of those ones where I don't always know if I can tell you why I edit things a certain way, but I do know that I can tell you when it works. Mm-hmm. Well, but I can't tell you why it works. Sometimes it's a thing. It's a sense you develop.
Barfox, you going to say something?
Oh yeah, I was just going to add on. I work with B-roll a lot, especially when I used to edit. So I used to tell the people I teach and the people that edit it for me, the simple thing is say, and they've all kind of said that. When you're doing something and we're talking about it, I want to see it. It is timing, like they suggested. And what you want to do is make sure your B-roll is an accent to the story, an accent to what's been told. Yeah. Yes, there are bad B-roll usage if it does not coexist with what's been said. That takes people out of the story. It pulls them out because people love to find mistakes or question things. So you have to be gentle with that. If I say we're at the cosplay convention and I show people at a car show or what have you, just to get people, it doesn't work. And that was a very simplistic example, but as you get into using your B-roll, make sure you use it as an accent. I've seen a lot of people in the beginning, they don't understand how to use B-roll, so they'll let somebody say something and then they'll put the B-roll afterwards. It's integrated. Bring the person back on camera, go back out to the B-roll. It's a flow. But we could talk about it more later because I specialize in the whole B-roll aspect.
It's one nice thing nowadays, that, especially when you can shoot your interviews in 4K, is you can actually use the interview subject itself almost as a B-roll, because if you don't have any B-roll, you can just punch in on them a little bit and hide like 2 seconds, 2 or 3 minutes or whatever. I mean, it's the same shot, but just changing the framing and stuff like that, and going from a wide shot to a tight shot.
My thing I would point out is, when you're watching like crime stuff and they only have like one image of the victim or one image of the murderer, and they just use it over and over, and like, well, we're going to slide it in from this direction, or we're going to bring it up from this way. Like, that drives me nuts when I've seen the same image over and over. So just make sure that you have enough subject matter if you're using it as B-roll.
It was a little tricky for us because, my original production budget was $5,000. It ended up being $25,000 because post. Yes. But it cost $5,000 to make the movie. And a lot of the interviews I did over the phone, Bruce Campbell, Don Coscarelli and stuff. So I had to find ways to make those interesting instead of just, and somebody came up at one of the festivals and said, it's really interesting because there's all these people who are still, but the subject of the film, is always live, and you're with him and you're talking, so it really pulls him out. And I'm like, okay, sure, that's what we're aiming for.
That was the biggest part of our budget on these, was just travel, because I have a thing about if I'm going to interview somebody, I want them on camera, and plus you never know what you're going to get. I mean, sometimes you just get gold. Because I remember there's this one bit. If you watch American Scary, you'll see it. When I was interviewing Neil Gaiman, and it wasn't planned. I didn't know how the movie was going to be in, but he started talking and saying something. You just get these chills up your spine. So I just realized he just gave me the perfect ending of the movie, and that's what I used. But it was just completely random, and it's just like, as soon as he said it, I was like, Neil, you know what you just did? He's like, yeah.
Oh, and one last quick thing, very quick. B-roll helps you tell a more concise story. So if I want to chop this 4-minute testimony down to 2 minutes, by using B-roll, I can connect the edits better and just tell a more precise and concise story.
Yeah, it's almost like you look at the timeline as a puzzle, and you're trying to solve problems as you're editing sometimes.
Yeah. I actually think shorter is better. When I pitched it to
Yes.
Joe, we talked about there was a documentary on Robert Johnson, and of course there's like one photo of him. So they really went about like where he was from, and they went to the place. And so when I talked to Joe, I said I want to do something like that, like go to Nacogdoches, show me where you grew up and stuff like that. So and it's 55 minutes, so we kept it tight. And we went the Robert Johnson one's 45, which I was aiming for, but.
But you can always edit. Sometimes shorter is better, but especially for documentaries, I think you also sort of might have to think about later resale use. 90 minutes is like a great length for a documentary because it easily fits in a 2-hour time slot. Because like my first version of this was 3 hours. The final release version is 95 minutes. You can always cut something. Even this, you may love a piece, but if it doesn't help the movie, get rid of it or try it without it. You can't be afraid to cut stuff.
No, and I had a documentary that I did that was about 70 minutes, and PBS affiliates wanted to air it, but they needed it to be an exact time, and I wanted people to see it, so I was like, well, I'll find 12 minutes to cut.
Yeah.
From 70. Oh, you're trying to get to a 1 hour.
70
slot.
to about 6
Okay.
to about like 58 minutes. Yes.
Okay.
You in the green hat.
Yeah, so speaking of part two,
Actually, could you come up to the mic? Thank you.
12 minutes out of it. That's a lot.
It
It's
is.
a lot, but that's something we have to learn. And that practice of cutting things shorter,
Short is
again,
Kill
is
your
a wonderful
darlings.
skill.
Yeah.
Kill your babies, yeah.
I was just gonna say, leading into that, even in my own hobbies, I play Magic. So part of the thing too is learning how to cut down hand size. That's the most important thing with storytelling, is just like being concise there. Like, I'm just gonna lean into that.
That's funny because I describe mowing the grass as editing my yard.
Because also too, like you said, you can always cut something, even if it hurts, that makes you a better storyteller. The same way it makes me a better card game player.
Absolutely.
But I feel like so
I know-
many
I know
films
one
have
of-
like 20 minutes of padding in them. So many films I love, and then there's 20 minutes. It's like, ugh. Okay, let's get it over with because I know you want to justify my paying $20 for it, but I don't need this 20 minutes. You can cut it down.
Right.
You can put it on the DVD as special features.
Yeah, that's what I did.
When
It's
I-
like 90 minutes of special
Yeah.
features.
In the short form world, I have a past in film programming. And so I always tell filmmakers, if you go over 15 minutes and you're meaning to be a short film, you better have a really good reason
Yes.
why. Because as film programmers, they'll look at, okay, I've got an 18-minute film, or I could play 2 9-minute shorts, and then I can give exposure to 2 separate filmmakers. So I always tell people the closer you can come in at 10, the better your festival run will be as far as short films.
Absolutely.
Yeah, back before I started working on Star Wars professionally, I was involved with a lot of fan films, and so it was with Lucasfilm, the official Star Wars Fan Film Awards they did. And the very first year they did it, they allowed entries up to 30 minutes. The next year it was down to 15. And then the next year they were trying to encourage people to make sure, because especially like you said with the festival pro, when you're going through trying to screen all those, and just finding. And it's amazing how much a 10-minute film can drag if it's not done well.
And with me, sometimes you just love what you're working on. I was working on Genius Aretha, and I loved every aspect of it. And I had to do something and produce it and make it only 3 minutes. And I screamed and yelled and hollered, like, why is 12 minutes worth of stuff here? But it really doubled down on my ability to just get to the story, hit the highlights, and tell it. When I did edit back in the day, I hated format editing. And format editing is when you take this wonderful movie you've seen and put it to time for network, and you cut out everything that you love, it seems like. But it taught me such a valuable lesson in how to tell a story and keep the story to the forefront, although I took out or have to take out some of the things that made me laugh or smile or enjoy it more. It's just so I can hit the mark. And again, the guy that asked about the filmmakers, that's just a wonderful skill to do. Have somebody cut somebody else's stuff down another 30 minutes and see if they still get the same feeling from it.
Yeah, test audience is your friend.
Oh yeah, I four-walled. A bunch.
You haven't asked her anything
Which is
yet.
brutal.
Well, I have an observation of how editing can change a story so much. I don't know how old I was, maybe 13 or 14. I saw Dirty Dancing for the first time on cable. And years later, I remember enjoying the movie, and I was like, the story didn't really make sense. But it was a fun movie. And then years later, like in college, I watched it again. And I was like, there was definitely no abortion storyline in this movie. And that is the whole reason the movie happened.
Yep.
So it can really, editing is so important.
It's
As
a
an actor,
choke point.
like I'm like, editing's more important than anything else.
It's very important.
Yeah.
Directing, editing.
Have you seen The Abyss?
One of my favorite Cameron movies. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay, so The Abyss is a very long movie to begin with. When it was in theaters, it was a long movie. It was much longer, and you'll see it on a director's cut. I forget the special edition Abyss.
Yeah, there's a special edition.
And
One of the first
there is a whole outward story arc that is completely removed from the movie, but it explains why everything happens in the movie. It's just gone.
Because you look at the original reviews, it's like the movie is just gangbusters. Da, 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 roar. Wait, what?
Right. It's just like, okay, this happened, but why were these characters even in this place, right? It just didn't make any sense. It was a truly enjoyable movie, even in the theater, even in its cut sense, but that director's cut it's almost
so
like the
much
Snyder
better.
cut.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know
done
that's really a different movie fundamentally, but it's almost to that level of
It explains it.
now I get it, and that's a brilliant movie.
Well, that, and he put back in so many of just the little character moments, because he writes character moments so well.
If you're looking to start out and you're worried about gear, you just shoot with what you got. Spin your wheels on editing, because you can turn the same list of shots into 2 or 3 different stories, 2 different kinds of stories, 2 or 3 different kinds of emotional feels. Editing is really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you.
So I'll go ahead and ask the one because it's actually sorry to think of this. So given new media formats, in the age of analytics and detection, does that impact the way you tell stories visually?
Yes.
And how?
Yes.
Nope.
Yes. For me, I feel the need to hit people at the top with something jarring or energetic to get them to even open themselves up to try to hear the story. Years ago, we could just be more of a linear storyteller. Now, even with docuseries and stuff, I have to put in that part that's really edgy from the interview, something that's make you think what happened, to get them hooked and then potentially hold them and tell the story. So it has absolutely changed the way I had to approach docuseries, documentaries, and television, because people want to see that to get hooked at the top.
With my corporate work, like when you look at the analytics, like most videos, you lose people within seconds if you don't grab them.
I think you're right, but that's a basic premise of storytelling. You got to hook them somehow. You got to get them to sit down and pay attention. I think there's some universal components that analytics probably reinforce. But man, there are 8 billion plus people on the planet. Whatever you're making, there's an audience for it.
Yep.
I wouldn't worry about trying to be too general. And analytics is like, how do I catch the most?
Yeah, I don't want.
don't
Sorry,
worry
go ahead.
about
No, you go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This isn't it's not a different thing. Everyone who has a favorite book can tell you what the first line of that book is, right?
Absolutely.
Just
Everyone who has a favorite book can tell you what the first sentence of that book is. That first sentence is the advertisement for the book, and it is now repeated in video for that first scene, the first hook, whatever it is you can get to make people say, okay, I don't mind spending the rest of my 15 minutes doing this.
I just try to trust my instincts. I mean, I don't look at analytics unless like all my friends tell me something just sucks or doesn't work. Luckily, they've never done that.
Or it goes viral, and then you're like, oh,
but but it's just I like to at least trust my gut feeling as to I think this is the best way to tell this story. That's how I'm going to do it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But this is how I think I should do it.
Yeah, I would trust a test
You can't
audience.
second guess yourself too much.
Yeah.
I would trust a test audience or a friend to watch it more than a number.
Well, we're at a point where literally you can spend hours on your phone scrolling through TikTok, through Instagram, Facebook Watch. And so, yeah, you've got about if that's what you're making content for, you've got, like 3 seconds before somebody goes, and it's just, something to make them stop and watch, because they have, we've been conditioned to the dopamine hits now of like every time you swipe you get a hit of dopamine, so you need something enough to keep
So I thought the whole
somebody.
dopamine was when people liked my videos. I didn't know when it was like,
Well,
does that work too? Like,
I would also add, try to do sizzles. Sizzles, especially when you're trying to pitch. A sizzle is
scissor
going.
reels.
Oh, sizzle reel. I'm sorry. I said sizzle. Sizzle reels. It just really helps you go through and find those moments, and it keeps us engaged, especially if you're in a pitching process. When you come to people like me, you want to do a sizzle. I don't want to see the whole thing. I just want to get that nugget and say I want to see the whole thing. Does that make sense?
What she said also about attention spans, also it depends on the venue. People are a lot less forgiving of something they're looking at on their phone than if you're
Yes.
like already on a channel or at a festival and you sit down to watch something. You're gonna, people just don't tend to really have any attention span for their phones, and that's, for a feature you just can't judge that properly. I don't think, but.
Right.
And
Yeah,
of course, if it's in a theater, it's a completely different than
Yes.
if they're watching at home, because then, they could just swipe away or click away. And
Yeah, it's all really dependent on your audience and the audience you're intending to reach. So is that on social media? Is that a four-wall theater or a film festival? It's really dependent on venue.
And with documentary too, it very much depends on the fandom of what the subject is. Like, because I went from cosplay and women in fandom, and I had a huge following for that, to this sort of unknown but Mark Twain writer in Nacogdoches, and so the writers came for that, but the fangirls not. So
Yeah, I guess it also depends a little bit on your topic. If you're doing gear videos, like I can't tell you when a car breaks and I have to go to YouTube to look up something and I get a life story before I get to you want to lead with what you're doing first, then tell me the life story.
Yeah, recipes are the same.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking that. Like,
Yeah. If you're
Now,
reviewing,
we are very close to time now, so I want to give the panelists a chance to plug if they have stuff to plug or where you can find them. Bar Fox, we'll start with you.
Yay! So I am Bar Fox. I have a lot of shows on air, so you can find me by my government name, Jabbar Lastly, or on IMDb. But for cosplay, we are actually showing the Cosplay Your Way documentary, a short of it, Monday morning at 10 a.m. in the Hilton in rooms 301 through 305. If you want to see the full version, it's on Influencer TV, and you can watch it on demand. And it's going to be playing at Comic-Con Africa, if you guys are going to be over there in Johannesburg. So that's where you can find me. And on all social media, I am BARRFOXX, Bar Fox, with 2 R's and 2 X's.
I am one half of Screen Door Pictures, a production company based out of Alabama. I have a YouTube channel called Trexpertise, about 100,000 subscribers, all about video essays with Star Trek and science fiction. Got a podcast called Wiki Surfer that's leans into cinematic sound design for storytelling. And I'm Neo Teotihuacan on most socials.
FilmImpactGeorgia.org is where you can find more information about our grant programs. We also have an entire filmmaker toolkit that has hundreds of templates, anywhere from personal releases, storyboard templates, shot list templates, crew deal memos, and it's all free. So you don't have to be a Georgia filmmaker to take advantage of that. We basically try to just build as many free resources as possible to break down the barrier of entry into filmmaking. You shouldn't have to get a film degree to be able to have those things. I was lucky enough to get one, but our grant cycle is open till September 18th. You can find us at Film Impact Georgia on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and personally, I am Melissa M. Simpson on Instagram. I have shorts coming, but they're all in post right now, so that'll be a later update.
I'm Hansi Oppenheimer. Yes, A-bomb. And my company is Squee Projects, and I have a website, squeeprojects.com, and I'm on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube as Squee Projects. And the Joe Lansdale documentary is right now on Vimeo. It's called All Hail the Popcorn King. And it's going to be on Troma Now. And I'm starting working on another film about horror writers. So let's see, 3-5 years.
Like I said, my name is John Hudgens. You can find me at zteamproductions.com and also at ZTeam Productions on YouTube. My films are streaming on Amazon Prime Video. I have some here if you want all the special features and stuff like that. And you can find me on Twitter occasionally under just John Hudgens.
And Facebook.
Stuff is
Oh, well, yeah, Facebook's private.
Oh, sorry.
And I'm Jeff Ello. I'm actually going to pump my panels here while I can. So at 11:30, no, that was now.
Are you here?
At 1, audio and video editing tutorial is going to be in Galleria 7. And that, I believe, is a tutorial on editing and audio and video editing.
And air conditioning.
In an air-conditioned room. It's fantastic. It's
AC,
amazing.
baby.
At 7 p.m. is guerrilla filmmaking and how to beg. So,
Why begging?
no. We beg.
I don't beg.
So at tonight at 10 p.m. is Hollywood East is looking for you. That's part of the writer's track. And I believe that they're referring to Hollywood East being Atlanta, making Hollywood Atlanta West, right?
We're just Atlanta. I don't subscribe to the Yollywood, to the Hollywood of the South. We are Atlanta. We are not LA. Sorry. Yeah, no one says Hotlanta.
So if anyone wants to stay around on Monday, 10 a.m. we got filmmaking for social media and vice versa. That's self-promotion, branding, etc. I'm sorry. Oh, that is in Piedmont of the Hyatt. And then the near future of filmmaking at 1 p.m. I like that one. That's also in Piedmont and the Hyatt. I should say guerrilla filmmaking is Piedmont and the Hyatt today. So.
Great. I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Blueberry, the sponsor of the digital media track. I want to remind you all about Open Hands Atlanta donations, which will be matched. And if you could rate this panel in the DragonCon app, the digital media track would very much appreciate
5
that.
stars. 5 stars, baby.
If you liked it, give it 5 stars. If you did not like it, give it 5 stars. Ironically. And you can follow the track on Twitch at /DC Digital Media. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you,
Hey, I'm
guys.
also always available to talk to filmmakers. If reach out to me on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. I'm always available to give advice and talk. That's what I do. So
I was going to say we should
reach
get a
out.
selfie.
Yeah.
All right, appreciate it.